All right, this video is how to fill out that second conclusion slide. So we're going to be using these sentence frames to talk about what happened in our lab. So the first sentence frame says the method I followed did allow / did not allow / partially allowed me to answer the research question. I think this is because ... Two strengths in the method were ... Two weaknesses in the method were ... Something I found difficult in carrying out the method was ... If I wanted to test the same problem again, I would / would not use the same method. This is because ... So we are going to use these sentence frames to talk about what happened in our lab. So remember yesterday you did your data interpretation and your hypothesis evaluation. That is conclusion 1. So now we're going to be doing the second conclusion slide. This is different from the improvements and extensions. That is what you're going to be doing tomorrow. So let's look at this first question. It says, or first statement, the method I followed did allow / did not allow / partially allowed me to answer the research question. I think this is because. So the question you might be asking yourself is, what is the method, right? So when we're looking at this slide, the method is your procedure and your data collection process. So your plan to do the lab and then how you collected the data. This is not an evaluation of like how you personally did the work. It's how the work could be done, if that makes sense. So if you have like a pretty good procedure but you didn't really follow it, that would be kind of where we would just be looking at how we were supposed to do it, not how we ended up doing it. So I'm going to exit out of this full screen, and then we're just going to type right here in the document. So I want you to think back to that lab we did where we had the marble rolling into the cup, and then we measured how far the cup went. So if we think about our research question, because when I read this, it says the method I followed did allow, did not allow, partially allowed me to answer the research question. So you may need to go back and look at your research question. I know mine from my marble lab, and that is, how does changing the mass inside the cup affect the distance the cup travels? So I would say that what we did in that lab did allow us to answer that research question. So I'm going to delete these other options. You may have did not allow, partially allowed. You may have a different answer. But for me and for my lab, that did allow me to answer the research question. And I think this is because my data shows that changing the mass, let's say increasing, we'll be a little more specific, increasing the mass in the cup did have an effect on the distance the cup traveled. And in fact, we could even be more specific and just say what happened in the lab again. So my data shows that increasing the mass in the cup did decrease the distance the cup travels. So in effect, the method, the way that I did the lab, allowed me to show what the answer to my research question was. So some strengths in that method, some things that worked well. Something that worked well is it was easy. So it's two strengths of the method where it was easy to change the mass, and it was clear how to collect data. So two things that I thought worked well in the method: it was much easier to change the mass using sand than it would be to use like pennies or something like that. I had a lot more control over how to change the mass. And then it was very clear how to collect the data. The cup moves, I measure how far the cup moves. That was pretty good. Some weaknesses in that method were it was hard to control the force that was applied to the cup because that ramp was not so great and we couldn't always ensure that the marble would hit the cup directly. And another thing that was difficult is it was hard to control the force that was applied to the cup and to repeat the experiment exactly every time. And again, for those same reasons. The ramp would flop open, that marble would kind of go all over the place. So something I found difficult in carrying out the method was, for a lot of us, it was difficult to measure the cup. The cup's distance traveled when the cup would not go in a straight line. I think for all of us that was a little bit difficult. So I'm going to just change that font size so that it'll all fit. So if I wanted to test the same problem again, I probably would use the same method. It definitely answered my question. This is because the method gave me clear data that supported my hypothesis and answered my research question. So that is how to fill out this conclusion slide. Now I know, and I want you to know that I know, that this is the first time that you've filled one of these out, so I will keep that in mind as I do my grading. I don't expect you to be experts about this just yet, so do the very best you can. I also want to clarify or point out that this is not the place for you to talk about like mistakes that you personally made in following the procedure. So if you forgot a step or you added too much of something or something like that, this is not the place to talk about that. We're talking about what the plan was and if there were any problems with the plan. Now, this is also not the place where we talk about lack of planning. We didn't think about this. Well, that's not a place to go on your conclusion. This is also not where we talk about like any personal problems, like so-and-so didn't bring the whatever, and that's why we had to hurry. Okay, none of that on your conclusion slide. And then it is also not a place to talk about how you didn't understand something. Like, we didn't know how to make a hypothesis, and that really slowed us down. Nope. We are simply looking at the procedure and how did the plan to collect data and looking to see if there were any shortcomings in that. So this stuff is not going to show up on your conclusion. All right, well, hopefully that will give you a little bit more information about how to fill out the conclusion slide. Like I said, do the very best you can. I'm not expecting any perfection here, and good luck on your lab reports.